Good night, good night, good night. It's good to be back. We're starting back our leadership conversations today. Appreciative of everyone taking the time out this evening. I know it's been about 2 weeks since our last conversation, and I appreciate you all taking the time out. I hope these last 2 weeks have been a good time for you guys. I hope that you guys it's the start of a great new week for everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. Pastor Tom, thanks for tuning in. Sister Cheryl, thanks for tuning in. My beautiful wife Asha, thank you for tuning in. I'm excited. It's been a while since we've had a conversation. I wanted to take a different approach to our conversations, and so what I decided to do is I posted some questions. I posted a question because I really want to take this time to help Christian leaders kind of get a better understanding of what it means to be a leader, help them to kind of better navigate their leadership, right? As leaders, we all have different challenges, and as Christian leaders, there are so many different things that we have to be able to navigate through, and we have to be able to grow as godly leaders. I think more now than ever, we need leaders who are going to be godly and do things the right way, if that makes sense. There's so many different voices out there. There's so many different messages, there's so many different teachings, and what's important is that as leaders, we have to be able to kind of navigate through the noise as well as help lead others through the noise. So I posted the question for some suggestions on topics that we should talk about for our leadership conversations, and I got some very good suggestions. It was good to get the feedback, and I appreciate each and every person that sent feedback. I think they were all relevant topics that really need time to delve into. And so I decided to start off with one of the topics that was suggested by a good friend of mine, Pastor Tom Heal. And it was about the difference between pride and confidence. And so want to jump into that today because I think it's something that's important as leaders, right? That we have to understand the difference, because there really is a huge difference between the two. But when we take the time to dive into it, I think we get a better understanding, and it helps us to become better leaders, because ultimately the purpose of what I do is to help leaders to be better at what you do. Right? You have the ability, you have the capability, you have the skills, you have the talent, you have the drive. But now how do we navigate and build upon that? How do we become better leaders? So I want to jump into that because in ministry, one thing that I've come to realize is that one of the most talked about issues is pride, right? One of the most talked about things that we deal with is pride, or challenges that we face is the challenge of dealing with pride, right? The unfortunate truth is that anyone in a leadership role has the potential to be overwhelmed by pride. So let's get that understanding, right? Anyone who is in a leadership position, especially if you have a platform, especially if you have a following, you're going to face that challenge of pride. And so I want us to dive into that. Before I do, take a moment to tag someone that needs to hear this. I want you to be able to like, share, subscribe, because I think this is something that is extremely relevant. It's a topic that's always relevant, regardless of day and age that we're in, because throughout history, you see some of the biggest challenges that people in leadership roles have is against pride, right? And like I said, when you have a platform and when you have a following, it's easy to be overwhelmed by pride. And so I want us to talk about that, because there's so many individuals and it's not just in Christian ministry, but it all across all platforms, of course, all industries, right? usually you see someone, they'll start off with being humble, they'll start off having that drive, that heart to serve, that passion to make a difference. But eventually, as their status increases, as their bank account increases, some of these leaders do fall into the trap of becoming prideful. They fall into the celebrity type of attitude, right? Celebrity type of mindset that causes you to be in a position where you're arrogant, you're overconfident, you're exalting yourself, and you almost have this mindset. You forget about the humble beginnings that you had before, right? You forget about the things that you used to do to get you to the place that you're at, and you focus on now self, right? You start off with a passion and a drive to build others, to help others, but somewhere along the line, they fall into this place of a me, all about me and what I can do. And usually that leads to them eventually falling from grace. Now, there are thousands of examples that we can choose from, right? But one thing that we want to understand is that celebrity kind of mindset, that celebrity attitude, that prideful attitude, I think we all can come to the conclusion that it's very distasteful. It's a turnoff, and it's a trap. Pride is a trap that we can fall into. We fall into the trap of pride. We fall into we can fall into the trap of being self-centered. Right? It's very easy to fall into that trap. And as leaders, we have to always be conscious. We have to always be self-evaluating, right? We have to always do self-evaluations, right? Where are we? There's times you gotta check the temperature. Where am I? Am I mentally in the right place? Am I emotionally in the right place? Am I sticking to my purpose? Am I sticking to my goals? Am I sticking to the vision? Am I keeping up with the things that got me to where I am today? So as leaders, we have to constantly do this self-evaluation. We have to make sure that we're not falling into that trap, because we want to avoid becoming prideful. We want to avoid it. And one thing that I've realized is that pride creeps in through knowledge. Right? The more you know, the more that you experience, right? And it can play out as confidence. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we tend to, when you know a lot, when you have a lot of information, it's very easy to develop a prideful mindset or a prideful heart. That's why people who are in major positions, especially in ministry, you can be a pastor or a teacher. Like, one of the biggest struggles that teachers will face is the challenge of pride, because you know a lot, you have a lot of information, you have a lot of wisdom, and you can easily allow that to get to your head. So we're talking about that tonight, right? Now, what I want us to think about, and what I want us to evaluate and examine, is that there is a difference between pride and confidence. There's a difference between pride and confidence. And sometimes we tend to confuse the two. We tend to confuse pride as being confident, and we tend to confuse confidence as being prideful. Right? We tend to make that difference between we tend to make that have that issue of understanding the difference, right? Because really and truly, they both look alike, right? At times they have similar features, they have similar looks, but one is authentic and the other is a copycat. When you think about confidence and you think about pride, one is authentic and the other is a copycat. It's like it's like the difference between a Gucci bag from the Gucci store versus a Gucci bag that you buy off of Amazon, right? Or a Gucci bag that you buy off of Fordham Road. For those of us that know the Bronx, that you buy off of Fordham Road, it's very easy to confuse the two, because when they really look similar, right? But it's not until you look at the tags and when you look at the stitching, then you're able to really see the difference. And so as leaders, we have to be able to develop a keen eye and be able to spot the difference. You got to be able to spot the difference in the stitching. You got to be able to spot the difference in the tags, because although they look the same, although they look alike, one is authentic and one isn't. So when we're able to see the difference, we can properly judge character. We can properly maneuver in our leadership. We can properly discern what is taking place. Because I in my years of ministry, I've seen so many people confuse the two. Well, they'll see a person in operating in their gift and in their anointing and operating in the area that God has placed them. And because they get into a flow, there's a level of confidence that exudes from them. So there's nothing like when you get into that flow state where you're in your element, you're in your area, and you're just flowing in what you do and who you are and who God has called you to be. And I've seen people confuse that and think of that as prideful. But like I said, one is from the Gucci store and one is from Fordham Road. One is authentic and one is a copycat and a lookalike. And so we have to be able to look at the two and tell the difference. So let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about pride. Now, when we talk about pride, we know all of the things that come along with it, right? The spirit of pride. We know that we. We know how people who are prideful operate, right? There's this level of arrogance. There's this level of overconfidence. There's this inflated opinion of themselves. There's this demand for respect, right? There's all kinds of things you see throughout scripture. You see throughout life, right? The symptoms of a prideful individual, right? They are very self-centered, self-focused. They're always attention seeking, right? They're puffed up, right? We always talk about haughtiness and being puffed up, being haughty, being vain. All of these things come with pride. Now, one thing that I want us to understand about pride is that there are levels to it. There are levels to pride. Right? When you think about pride, it starts off. And one thing that I've realized about pride is that there's a reason why pride is associated with Leviathan, right? Because of it's very subtle. It'll creep in, right? It sneaks up on you, right? It's not something people don't just jump into just being prideful. I've never seen anyone just wake up 1 minute and just automatically be prideful. It's something that takes time to build, and it takes time to creep in, and it takes time to grow, right? And so there are levels of pride. First level of pride, it starts off as false humility. Right? You talk right. Externally, you act as if you're a person that's humble. You act as if you're an individual, as if, oh, it's not me, it was God. And you say all the right things. Externally, you portray humility, but internally, you start to get a little bit full of yourself. Right? You start to get a little full of yourself with false humility. You have this kind of in the back of your head. It'll be small. It's a small voice in the back of your head that says, "Man, yeah, I killed it." Right? they say, "Oh, it's not me, it's all God." But in the back of their head, they have this feeling like I killed it, like I did an amazing job, like this was all me. And it starts off as a false humility. So that's the first level that we see. It's, oh, I'm humble. Thank God. It's all praises to God and things like that. That's how it starts off. You seem humble. You look humble, right? But in the back of your head, you start to feel yourself just a little bit. Even if it's just a small seed, you start to fill yourself just a little bit. So it starts off with that. And then as you allow it to grow, it moves on to arrogance. So now it's no longer an internal thing, but it's both internal and external. So you start to have this overconfidence in your ability. You start to have this inflated opinion about who you are and your accomplishments, and there's almost a bit of a distortion in reality. Your reality gets distorted a little bit because you start to become more self-centered, you start to become more selfish, and so every good thing that happens is you, and every bad thing that happens is everybody else. That's when you start to find excuses for mistakes. You start to find excuses for failure. You start to find excuses for whatever reasons because you don't want to look bad. So you start having this arrogance where it's just this air about you that, man, I am dope, right? You develop this kind of mindset that, man, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so you move from false humility and then you move into arrogance. And then as you continue to allow it to build, you get a platform, you start to get more followers, you start to accomplish more things, you start to learn more things, right? Then you slowly start to move up to narcissism. Narcissism is everything now is about me. The whole world revolves around me. It's about me, myself, and I, right? You start to feel like every great thing in the world revolves around you. Every good thing that happens to you and the people that are around you you had some involvement. You had some hand in it. You made others great. You help them to accomplish or reach a certain level. You start to feel as if nothing can work without you. And so you develop this narcissistic personality where you can't stop thinking about yourself. You can't stop worrying about yourself. Every conversation turns to be about you. You develop this extreme self-involvement, right? Every conversation has to be about you. Someone comes to you and complains or talks about something that happened to them. You find a way to bring it back to you. It's that narcissistic mindset that you don't want to hear anything about anybody else or what's going on with anybody else, and let somebody share good news or have a good day or have a better day. You try to find some way to make your life seem much better, right? You As I'm talking, I'm thinking about this individual that I used to follow on Instagram, where they're a preacher of the gospel, but every single page on every single picture on their Instagram and on their social media is selfies. Think about some of these actors and models where every single picture that they post is a selfie, right? It's just this narcissistic mindset where everything is about you, and everything that you post, everything that you say, everything that you do turns right back to you. So you can't let anybody get a upper hand over you. They can't have a better day. They can't have do anything better than you. And sometimes we've seen that, right? Where God will use an individual in a mighty way, and somebody will jump on after them to almost steal their spotlight. So now they got to do the most. They gotta show off their own self, because they don't want anybody else to get any shine, right? So we start off with false humility, then we move to arrogance, then we move to narcissism, and then the top level of pride is a God complex. It's that Nebuchadnezzar mindset where I need to build an idol and everybody has to worship me. I'm going to build this. Everything that I build, everything that I do, requires requires attention. It requires you praising me. You got to worship the ground that I walk on. This God complex that nothing happens without you. No major decision is done without you. No great thing happens without you. Everything in your world. See? So now it's no longer affecting me, right? So narcissism focuses on me, but the God complex says now is not only do I focus on me, but now you need to focus on me. And so you got to worship the ground that I walk on. You gotta call me by my title, right? They mistaken call you pastor as it's prophet, or it's apostle, or it's doctor, right? You have almost this complex that no one can make a decision, no one can make a move, no one can do anything without your approval, without your say so. And guess what? If it fails, it's not because of me, it's because you didn't listen to me. You didn't listen to my instructions, right? So this godlike complex where I create and you have to worship me and you have to bow down to me. That's the top level of that people can get to when pride goes unchecked. And as a leader, you never want to get to that place of being arrogant. You never want to get to that place of being narcissistic. You never want to be in that place where you develop a God complex. Because history will tell you, Bible will tell you that every person who had a godlike complex, God, the real God, the real God showed up and made an example of them. Right? Nebuchadnezzar, God made an example of him. Every single person who develops a God complex, the real God shows you who you are, and he makes an example, because the Bible says that he would not share his glory with anybody, right? And so as leaders, as people who are influencers, as people who are who do great work, who are vision builders, who work to inspire others, who work towards accomplishing a goal, right? Never allow yourself to get to that point. Sometimes you got to take a step back and say, listen, I'm feeling myself a little bit too much. Maybe I got to check myself just a little bit, right? Because influence is something that can be intoxicating. It's a great feeling when you see people are inspired by you. It's a great feeling when you see people are motivated by your leadership, or when people catch your vision and they help you build it, and people are able to see levels of success. It can be intoxicating if you don't check yourself, and you can start to feel like, man, it's all me, when really it's not you. Yes, you were someone who was a vessel that was used to help others, but it's not based on you. And as leaders, I'm admonishing, I'm encouraging, because I've seen so many leaders allow narcissism to destroy their ministry. I've seen them allow narcissism and this godlike complex destroy everything that they worked hard to build. And so that's pride, right? False humility, arrogance, narcissism, and then the God complex. These are just some of the levels that come along with pride when it goes unchecked. But that is the copycat, right? The pride is the copycat of confidence, right? So confidence is something different. Although pride needs confidence to operate, confidence doesn't need pride. And as leaders, we have to be confident. And that's why we have to recognize the difference, because there's a very thin line between confidence and pride. There's a thin line between confidence and arrogance. Right? As leaders, it's important that we are confident. People will follow leaders who are confident. You have to be confident. It's a must. It's a requirement because confidence demonstrates competency. Confidence helps people to feel secure, right? If a person is a police officer and someone is chasing after me to kill me, and I run to the police officer and they're not confident in who they are as a police officer, I don't feel safe. I can't feel safe that they're not going to allow whoever's trying to kill me not to kill me, right? You gotta have a level of competency. You gotta be able to be good at what you do. I can't feel safe around you or feel secure to follow your leadership if you're not confident in what you're doing, right? And so as leaders, we have to have confidence. You have to have confidence in your skills. You have to have confidence in your ability, right? And it's important to understand that you can be confident and still remain humble. That's something that we have to understand. Confidence and humility go hand in hand, right? A lot of people, they shy away from being confident in who they are. They shy away from being confident in their ability. They shy away from stepping into leadership roles because they mistakenly associate confidence and pride. It is possible to be humble and confident. Right? It's impossible. It is possible to be humble, but still be confident in what you do, right? Because your humility keeps you in a position where I recognize that I can't do this on my own strength. Right? So I have the skill, I'm confident in my ability, but the power that allows me to function is not me. That's where humility rests. Humility rests in, listen, I'm confident that I can do this. I've worked hard. I've studied. I've prepared. I've done the work to grow in this area. I dedicated the time to develop a level of mastery in what I do. But I don't use it as a tool to make others feel less than. See, humility is a combination of confidence, competency, and integrity. Right? Confidence helps to empower others. Confidence helps people to trust you. They'll trust you because they're confident in your leadership. They're confident in your ability to direct, to build, to empower, to assist them, right? And so you have, as Minister Captain says, you need a healthy balance of both confidence and humility. When you have both confidence and humility, it makes a world of a difference in your ability to execute. Right? One of the scriptures that I always refer to when talking about humility is the scripture that says that Christ, he found it not robbery to be equal with God, right? That's what the scripture says, that Jesus found it not robbery to be equal with God, but he humbled himself. Excuse me. Right? The particular scripture is Philippians 2, right? Philippians 2. It says, who being in the form of God thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation and took upon him the form of a servant and was in the likeness of men, right? Humility is about being confident in where you are, but not working towards building a reputation. I'm not attracting any attention to myself, right? It's not about me. And that's one of the differences that you'll recognize between someone who is prideful and someone who is confident. Someone who is prideful is self-centered. They're attention seeking. Everything has to be focused on them. They have to be the ones to take the credit. They have to be the one who knows it all. They have to be the one who has the last word, right? Someone who's confident. They don't focus on themselves. They're more focused on their team. They're more focused on their objective, on their purpose, on their mission, and they find ways to divert attention. If you look at someone who is truly confident, right? They don't seek any kind of attention at all. They're usually the quietest people in the rooms. Right? Someone who is confident, they don't need to say much. They don't need to say much. They don't need to be the one to have the last word. They don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. They don't have to do any of that stuff because of the level of confidence. Someone who is prideful has to have the last word. They have to be the loudest voice in the room. Right? If someone makes a suggestion, then they have to follow up because they have to have the last word. But someone who is confident, they'll sit back and let everyone speak. And then when the right time presents itself, they'll say something. And usually when they talk, it captures everybody's attention without even trying. I've been in rooms with leaders who exude this level of confidence where they don't need anyone to know their title. They don't need anyone to know their position. They just sit back. They allow everyone to speak. They get everyone's feedback and everyone's thoughts and everyone's opinions. And then when the time comes for them to actually speak and say something, the whole room gets quiet. You ever been in a place with someone, when they speak, the whole room just stops to listen to what they have to say? Because they have such wisdom that comes that when they speak. They don't need to do much. But someone who is prideful, they got to do the most. They got to do the most to make sure, listen, hey, I'm the one speaking. And that's how you know when someone truly is a leader. When they're not focused on their own opinions, they're not trying to make their opinion seem like the best opinion. But someone who is confident, they'll share their feedback, but they're open to other feedback. Confident leaders are leaders who recognize that less is more. Less is more. I don't have to always talk. I don't have to talk for 2 hours and get everyone and have everyone compliment me for how well that I do. And that's another perfect difference between someone who's prideful. Someone who's prideful needs to be complimented. They need the compliments. They need someone to pat them on the back. They need someone to say, man, you did an awesome job. You did an amazing job. But someone who is confident, whether you compliment them or not, as long as they've accomplished what they came to do, that's all they need. That's all they need. They don't need you to pat them on the back. They don't need you to say, great job. Did I do what I came here to do? And if I did, that's all I need. I don't need anyone to say great job. If you say good job, then hey, to God be the glory. That's cool. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to get anybody's praises. I'm not here to get anyone's attention. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to help build a vision, and that's what's more important. Did I do my job? Did I do what I came here to do? Confident leaders are not worried about others. They're not focused on others. See, prideful people, they see other people as a threat. They see other individuals as a threat. You're a threat to me, to my position. and you're a threat to the spotlight that I have. Right? But a confident leader, someone who's a confident leader, they are always trying to find ways to empower others. They're not worried about what anybody else is doing. Right? As a matter of fact, they're trying to see how I can help you do what you do better. We were in our Sunday school lesson yesterday, and we were talking about Moses and the fact that when he called upon the 70 elders and the cloud of glory, the cloud of God came down and fell on them, right? And the 70 elders started to prophesy, right? Moses' response, Joshua's response to the situation and tries to get Moses to stop these other leaders from prophesying. And Moses' response is, man, I wish that all God's people were prophets. Right? Moses knew who he was in God. He knew he was confident in his position. He was confident in where God placed him. He was confident in how God gifted him. And he didn't allow any of the elders who prophesied to intimidate him. What they were doing did not intimidate him. Their ability to flow in the Spirit of God and flow in the anointing didn't bother him, because he understood where his confidence lied. His confidence lied in God. And that's what we have to do as leaders, that we can't allow others to make us feel intimidated or feel like we have to worry about them as a threat. Listen, you can do what you got to do. And as long as you're not harming others while you're doing what you're doing, then I support you. You know, and I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in the body of Christ is that we don't necessarily support other visions or other leaders as much as we should. I'm not saying that we don't do it at all, but we don't support as much as we should, especially when it doesn't look like the traditional things that we do, right? If it doesn't look like the traditional Sunday morning church or Wednesday prayer meeting or Wednesday or Friday Bible study, if it doesn't look like that, we tend not to support as much. Or if someone is being used in a particular manner, we struggle to believe that God is using them. But as leaders, we have to be confident in who we are in God and who God has created us to be. We got to be confident in what God has created us to do. Confidence is centered on your ability to do something, right? What makes a person confident is their surety in their skill and their ability. See, the thing about prideful people, they think that they're great at everything. They think that they're great at every single thing that they do. Everything I touch is gold. I got the Midas touch. Everything that I touch is gold, because pride is not about one's ability. Pride is about self. Right? Pride is about self. How can I look good? How can I get attention? How can I be one who gets the praises? It's about self. But confidence is about your ability. Confidence is about your skill. So I'm not great at everything. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that I'm not great at everything. And that's why I recognize that I can't do what I do. I can't lead alone. See, so many prideful leaders, they feel like, oh, I could do this thing without you. I could do this all by myself. I can build this vision by myself. But the truth of the matter is you can't. And a true confident leader recognizes where their weaknesses are, and they empower others to help build. They empower others to be great at what they're weak at. See, a confident leader can understand that, listen, I'm great at writing, right? Or I'm great at creating vision, but I'm not great at accounting. or I'm not great at administration. I'm not great at HR work or hiring individuals. See, a confident leader can recognize their weaknesses and be okay with it. They can be okay with the fact that they're not great at everything. This particular area is a weak point for me, and so I'm okay with that because I know what I can do. And that's another thing about confidence versus pride is that confidence is very realistic. Confidence is something that is realistic. I realize that I'm not good at this, but pride is an inflated mindset. It's a distorted reality. You think that you can be good at everything. You think that you can sing, you can preach, you can pray, you can prophesy, you can do all of these things by yourself. Right? Like it's like the guy from Along Came Polly. He was like, hey, I'm playing both the character of Jesus and Judas. Let me rock. So prideful leaders will think that they can be both Judas and Jesus and play all the roles. They can be all the disciples all at once. They can be Peter, they can be Andrew, they can be Matthew, they can be all of those things. And they want you to let them rock. It's an inflated reality, distorted reality. But a confident leader says, listen, I'm only good at this area and I can do this well. And I need others around me who can supplement and complement my weaknesses. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my level of leadership. I'm okay with my ability to empower others. I'm okay with my ability to delegate responsibilities. I don't need to be great at everything. Let me just be Peter. Let me just be Andrew. Let me find the rest. That's what a true confident leader is about. They're confident in understanding that realistically, I can't do all of these things. I can do one thing really good, right? I can master one thing at a time versus being a jack of all trade and a master of none. So these are just some of the differences between a confident leader and a prideful leader. As leaders, we have to learn to be confident without being prideful. Yes, you're great at what you do, but ultimately you can't do it on your own. It's not of your own strength. It's not of your own ability. It's not of your own character. It all is all encompassing. It's about the people that God has placed in your life, that God has surrounded you with. It's about the abilities that God has given you and recognizing that if God is not in it, then nothing works. If I don't have the right people around me, I can't be successful. And so I'm going to be confident in what I can do, but I'm still going to maintain a character of humility, a character of integrity, a character of compassion. I'm going to have love. I'm going to have be caring. I'm going to empower others. All of these things are important to be as a leader and as a confident leader. Right. But versus the prideful leader that you need me more than I need you. It's a terrible belief system, a terrible mindset, but we have to learn to recognize the difference. Because someone who's arrogant, you can just tell. You can just tell because they exude this arrogance, whether they're functioning or not. Let's say that. Whether they're functioning or not, they want you to. They bring up things that they've done. They're always talking about their accomplishments and their abilities. Versus a confident leader that I don't need to talk about what I can do. I'm going to do what I can do and let it speak for itself. So with that, I see some questions, and what I want to do is I want to take a moment to answer some questions. And I think moving forward, I'm going to have a segment where people are allowed to pose questions. I want to hopefully start to bring in other leaders to join me for conversations, and with that, I'll be open to questions as well. But I see a few questions, and I want to address them. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them. Feel free to let's talk about it. Whatever questions, whatever comments, whatever concerns you have, let's talk about it. Because, like I said, as leaders, we have to be able to recognize the difference. We have to be able to shy away and move away from being prideful so that we can be effective. And so my beautiful wife, who always supports me and always pushes me, she posted a few questions. So I want to take a moment and look at some of them. So one of the first questions that she posted is, how can a leader be careful or mindful of the ensnarement of pride when they're looking for encouragement? That's a good question. One thing that I want us to understand is that when you think about your leadership, or think about your confidence as a leader, as a leader in general, you got to constantly be checking yourself, right? And you got to constantly be taking a moment to take a step back and look at yourself, right? Pride is, like I said before, is focused on self, right? I want attention, me, myself, and I, right? And so as a leader, in order to be careful of the ensnarement of pride, right? And it's easier than it looks, right? It's easier than it looks to fall into the trap of pride, because of the fact that when we need encouragement, there are sometimes when you just want someone to say good job, right? We all need encouragement. We all want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, right? We'll all want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, right? We always want to make sure, we always want that. We need that sometimes. But what separates wanting encouragement from falling into pride is, does that drive you? What is driving you after that point? Because we do want encouragement, because most of us, we want to, like I said, be sure that what we're doing is right, that we're on the right track, right? But if that now drives you to constantly seek approval, if it drives you to constantly seek that pat on the back, and if it puts you in that position where you're constantly thinking about me, then now you've crossed over from wanting encouragement to pride, right? Because you don't ever want to get to that place where you're so self-focused and you're so attention-seeking that you fall into that place of, now I need it, right? There's some instances where we need encouragement. But there's some instances where we just need to go to God to get clarity, or get that encouragement. Sometimes we got to encourage ourselves, right? David talks about that, right? That you got to encourage yourself. But when a confident leader says, listen, I know where my help comes from. I know that ultimately, if I don't get the encouragement that I feel that I need, it's not going to stop me from doing the work. All right, now I'm getting it. It doesn't stop me from doing the work, because some people, they're looking for encouragement and it causes them to stop because they're not getting the encouragement that they need. That's pride. Now I'm going to stop what I'm doing until someone gives me attention. But as leaders, whether you get encouraged or not, keep doing it. Keep doing the work. Keep doing what you have to do, because ultimately it's not about you, but it's about what you're trying to accomplish. So I hope that answered that question. I'm gonna jump around just a little bit. Now, should a leader connect with or invite prideful leaders to speak to their people? Now, it's a tricky question. It's a tricky question in that I don't think that you should invite someone who is prideful, because pride is such a distasteful thing and it'll turn people off. Right? It'll turn people off to deal with someone who is prideful. And so, me personally, I don't think you should connect with or invite a leader who is prideful, because ultimately that pride is going to affect how people respond. Right? And the reason why I say it's difficult, because some people, some leaders, they'll see an individual who has pride, but they'll try to look past their pride and look at their area of expertise. And so they'll say, well, they are good at this, and they're great preachers, and they're great prophets, and they're great apostles. And so I want to invite them because they're good at what they do. And while it's good to have someone who's good at what they do, if you invite someone who is prideful, sometimes their character, that prideful, arrogant personality after they minister, will negate everything that they've done. Because I've seen, and I've been in ministry for pretty much all of my life, since I was 8 years old. And I've seen this where an individual will preach well, they will prophesy well, they'll do the work well, and they'll give you good information, and they'll help to meet the need of sharing their expertise. But when they come down and they interact with the people, because of their arrogance, everyone forgets about how well they preached and how well they functioned, and they'll only see the pride and be turned off from that. That's one. Two, you want to be careful that spirit doesn't transfer over, where people will see that as an example. Yes, they're good and they have this character about them, and that's what I should mimic, right? Because some people see someone who is excellent at what they do and think that that's the personality that I need to mimic. And you never want to put people in that position where they're going to be hurt, they're going to be disrespected, or that pride is going to transfer. And so, to answer the short answer to your question is, I personally don't think that you should invite a leader who is prideful. I always believe that your gifts are not enough. Your character has to speak for you. And if you don't have a good character, then I can't have you around people that I'm leading, because I prioritize, and I believe God prioritizes character over ability, over talent. And so it's important that you have people around you, or you connect with people that are of character. Because the one thing that there's a quote that Sidney Poitier made. He said that when you're walking with someone, right? And we were talking about that scripture, that two can't walk unless they agree. Sidney Poitier said that when you're walking with another person, something happens. It's either they speed up to your pace or you slow down to their pace. And so whenever you're walking with someone, whenever you build a connection with someone, there is a transfer, whether you know it or not. There are things about them that will influence you, and there are things that there are things from them that you will take on without recognizing, and there are things from you that they'll take on without recognizing. And so when you're walking with someone, when you're connecting with something, there's transfers. And so you could connect with someone who is prideful, and then they transfer that spirit of pride without even knowing. Because like I said, pride is something that creeps in. It sneaks up on you. So yeah, that would be the answer to that question. Pastor Tom, thanks for your question, man. He says, how would you address someone who has been conditioned to lead in pride and break those strongholds that come with that conditioning? One of the challenges, and they tell you this in psychology, that it's harder to unlearn things than it is to learn something new. And I think that's where proper training and proper discipleship comes into play. Of course, there has to be a level of deliverance that comes along with breaking those things and a renouncing of that spirit. But it first has to start off with the individual recognizing that this is what I'm dealing with. And usually people that are prideful don't believe that they're prideful. They don't believe it at all. They don't believe that they're prideful at all. They think that they're doing everything well, right? Again, back to that inflated reality, that distorted reality. And so it has to be a recognition, an acknowledgement that, man, I've been operating incorrectly all of this time. You got to renounce those things. And then once you renounce it, then you have to start changing behavior, and you have to start learning under the leadership that you're under, right? And then with that, right, prideful people don't like to submit, so it's a hard process that they have to learn submission. They have to learn submission all over again. They have to learn how to develop all over again. And so it first off starts off with showing. Sometimes you have to show the right way, right? You have to show, as leaders, it's our responsibility and our duty to always show a more excellent way. And so as leaders, you got to show a more excellent way to help them recognize their pride, and then start taking the necessary deliverance steps to breaking that. Sometimes it requires laying on of hands and throwing up. Sometimes it requires just teaching right doctrine. Deliverance, the greatest of deliverance that you can have is a change in mindset. And so sometimes you got to teach the right doctrine for them to be able to change and to grow from that. So thank you for your question. Just checking. I want to make sure that I have all of the questions. All right, boom. Are rings, chains, robes, titles, and a chalice evidence or trait of pride or confidence or church system? Man, Prophet is actually trying to get me in trouble. Trying to get me in trouble with these questions. The right answer to that question is it's more rooted in tradition, but it doesn't have to be a symbol of pride, right? Because depending on what denomination that you're from, what denomination you're under, there are certain things that come with that, right? So some denominations believe that you have to wear the bishop chain and the apostolic ring. You have to wear a robe and things of that nature. But it doesn't necessarily indicate that an individual is prideful. It doesn't really indicate if an individual is confident either. Sometimes it's rooted in tradition of whatever that denomination is. What I think, though, is that the individual who is carrying these items, who's wearing these items, it's all about how they portray themselves, how they demonstrate or demonstrate their lives, because you'll see people who, because I've seen both. I've seen people who wear chains and rings and robes, right? And titles, and they are some of the most humble people that I've ever met. They preach well, they do what they do well, and they operate in their gifting and in their calling well. And none of that stuff really even matters to them. They kind of just do it because that's a part of the tradition that they're from, right? But then I've also seen individuals who have all of those things, and they are some of the nastiest people in the world. They think that it makes them better or higher than others, right? I don't think what you wear necessarily indicates who you are, right? Because I think this is mindset that someone who is humble, they have to wear rags and ash and sackcloth, right? They have to be in this quote unquote humble looking attire, almost like this poor kind of look, right? People tend to associate that with being humble, right? And then people who wear robes, who preach in robes, they are arrogant and prideful. But I've seen people operate in both. I've seen people who dress in the humblest clothes, but when you talk to them, you can hear the arrogance in their voice. You can see the arrogance in their body movement. And I've also seen leaders who have robes, who preach in robes, and they're nothing like that. So I think it's not a sign or an evidence, but I appreciate that question because it is church system, but we as people we develop this bad taste or this bad mindset that if I see an individual in an apostle ring or a bishop chain or a robe, right? Then that means that they are prideful people, right? But if they're in just a regular suit and a pastor and in a collar, then they're super humble, right? It's a bad association that we tend to make as church people. But ultimately, what you wear really doesn't determine who you are, right? Because Bible says even the devil shows up as an angel of light. So you can be in humble looking attire, but still be a devil, for lack of better words. So it's important that we recognize the difference. You have to be able to discern character. And that's what the point of this conversation is, to be able as leaders to discern whether an individual is the real deal and is authentic, or if they are someone who is a copycat. She says, I wear a robe and I have to question, do I wear it or was that 5 years ago? Listen, as a minister myself, there are moments where God will lead you to just wear a pastoral collar. And there are some moments where God will lead you to wear a robe because there's something that he wants to do, particularly and in that particular session or service. And he'll instruct you to wear a robe because of what he wants to do. And there's sometimes when he'll instruct you to just wear a pastoral collar. So again, what you wear does not determine or is not a sign of whether or not you're a prideful leader, but it's about what is your character? What is your outlook? How do you portray yourself? Do you see yourself as a larger than life individual? Because if you think you're a larger than life individual, then something is wrong and you're operating in pride. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to be able to recognize as leaders. And so I hope that was impactful. I hope you were able to get something from this conversation, because like I said, as leaders, we have to be confident in who we are and who God has called us to be, but in the same vein, not allow ourselves to fall into the trap of pride. Yes, you're called. Yes, you're great. Yes, you are building a vision. Yes, you are influential. Yes, people are inspired by you. But ultimately, you know that it's not you, but it's the God that's in you. And so you're not trying to make yourself seem greater than anyone else. You're not trying to portray yourself as being more important, but it's having that mind and that heart of a servant, that almost Superman personality, right? As great as Superman was when he had on his Superman costume and he was fighting crime, he exuded his confidence, and he did what he needed to do to get the job done to save the people. But when all of that was said and done, he switched back over into his suit and tie and glasses and became Clark Kent. And so sometimes as leaders, we have to almost be like Superman, where yes, I'm going to be confident in what I can do and in my superpower, but really and truly, I'm Clark Kent. I'm hiding in plain clothes. I'm not drawing any attention to myself. I'm not seeking any pat on the back. One of the people that I admire so much is my Pastor Bridget Taylor, because she is an individual who is so humble, and she's so soft spoken. She's so loving and so compassionate. But when she takes that mic and she starts to preach, oh my gosh, it's something else. I to this day, I remember the first time that I ever heard her preach, and she took the mic, and it was inspiring to me, because as someone who's an introvert and who doesn't like to talk and who's soft spoken, when I heard this lady preach, I said, oh my God, who is this? Right? And one of the most effective things that you can do as a leader is, when you get that moment where God is going to use you, throw on your Superman costume and you do what you do, and you do it well, you do it with excellence, right? But then when you come down, you go back to yourself. She preached, and that message was she would preach with such passion and such fire. And then when she came down, she was just back to Bridget. She was back to Bridget. She's smiling. Oh, God bless you. Oh, hope you're doing well. And all of these things. But she didn't come down and look at herself, look down on anybody, or act as if she's greater than anybody. She came back to her humble self, because she knew that however God uses her is not of her own strength, of her own power, but she recognized that, listen, it's only God that gives her the ability to function the way she does. And so I encourage you as leaders, that's the mindset you got to take on. The Superman Clark Kent. When you're in your flow and you're in your area, you're in your element, be as confident as you can be. Be as confident as you can be in your superpower. But when you're not functioning in your superhero role, come back to earth and be regular. Understand that it's important to empower others, and it's important to include others in all that you're doing. So I hope that was impactful. I hope you were able to get something from that. I appreciate you taking the time for tuning in. I appreciate the questions. I think this is something I definitely want to continue doing, because I love answering questions. So I'm definitely going to start to end my segments earlier, so that I could address questions. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to send me topic suggestions. Because like I said before, one of the things that I want to do is get some feedback from you as leaders, as godly leaders. What are some of the questions that you have about leadership? What are some of the challenges that you face? What are some of the things that you think uh, others should hear about? What should we talk about? And so please send me questions, send me topic ideas, send me what you can, and send and I'm going to do my best to study, do my best to prepare so that we can be able to grow and learn together. My desire is that we all grow and learn and become better leaders in all that we do. So I thank you so much. I hope that you all have a blessed week. I hope that God will continue to keep you, that his presence will be with you. I hope that you have a blessed week and that you will grow as in your leadership and that you will take another step closer towards building your vision. So I love you all. I'll see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.